Welcome back, history enthusiasts. Today, we're diving into one of the most turbulent periods in English history, the Norman Civil Wars, more commonly known as the Anarchy. From 1135 to 1153, England was embroiled in a bitter, bloody struggle for the throne following the death of Henry I. This civil war saw rival factions, including the supporters of Henry's daughter Matilda and his nephew Stephen of Blois, clash for control of the English crown. But the Anarchy wasn't just a political struggle, it was a deep, transformative conflict that redefined the course of English history. In this video, we'll unpack the causes, the key players, the major battles, and the lasting consequences of this devastating period. Let's get started. To understand the significance of the Norman Civil Wars, we need to start with the Norman conquest of 1066. After William the Conqueror defeated King Harold II at the Battle of Hastings, the Normans solidified their control over England. The ruling dynasty, established by William, maintained its grip on power for nearly a century. However, the Norman monarchy was still relatively new, and many English lords were dissatisfied with their Norman rulers. The power structure that emerged was one of tension: Norman aristocracy versus Anglo-Saxon subjects. The ruling Norman monarchs had to continually manage these tensions and maintain order in a kingdom that had been dramatically reshaped by foreign conquest. Henry I, who ascended the throne in 1100 after his brother William II's sudden death, was a shrewd and capable ruler who expanded the kingdom's influence in Wales and Scotland. Henry also introduced significant legal reforms, centralizing power and working to secure the throne through strategic marriages and alliances. But the death of Henry I in 1135 would set off a chain of events that would plunge England into a state of crisis. Henry I's death in 1135 without a male heir created a significant problem for England. He had one legitimate son, William Adelin, but the young prince tragically drowned in the White Ship disaster of 1120. With no surviving male heir, Henry's only remaining legitimate child was his daughter, Matilda, also known as Empress Matilda, as she had been crowned Empress of the Holy Roman Empire through her marriage to Emperor Henry V. Henry had designated Matilda as his successor, and many of the nobility had sworn allegiance to her. However, in an age where monarchy was still predominantly a male-dominated institution, many English nobles found it difficult to accept a female ruler. Moreover, Stephen of Blois, a grandson of William the Conqueror and a close relative of Henry I, seized the opportunity. Stephen claimed that Henry had promised him the throne on his deathbed, and many of the barons were more inclined to support Stephen as a more traditional male heir. Thus began the succession crisis that would later be known as the Anarchy. Stephen quickly gathered support from powerful barons and even from the church, securing his position as king. He was crowned in December 1135 in Westminster Abbey, a moment that symbolized the division that had already begun within the kingdom. However, Matilda, who had been in France at the time, did not accept this usurpation lightly. Matilda and her half-brother, Robert of Gloucester, launched their campaign to reclaim the throne. They had the support of some powerful factions, particularly in the west and the south of England, where many barons still favored Matilda as the rightful heir. The conflict quickly escalated into a civil war, with both sides recruiting soldiers, fortifying castles, and engaging in brutal skirmishes. The first few years of the Anarchy were marked by back-and-forth battles for control of key cities and castles, and a rapid shift in alliances. The nobility, who had pledged loyalty to either Stephen or Matilda, often switched sides depending on who seemed to have the upper hand. This unpredictability made the conflict even more chaotic. As the Anarchy raged on, a number of significant battles and events helped shape its course. 1. The Battle of Lincoln 1141. One of the most decisive moments of the conflict occurred at the Battle of Lincoln in 1141. Stephen was captured during a failed siege of Lincoln Castle. His capture was a major blow to his cause and marked a turning point in the war. However, Matilda's forces were unable to capitalize on this victory. Despite her newfound advantage, Matilda's inability to decisively claim the throne would cost her support. She was unable to gain the loyalty of London, and when she attempted to take the city, her forces were repelled. 2. The Siege of Oxford 1142. In 1142, Matilda was besieged in Oxford Castle by Stephen's forces. She was forced to escape, famously fleeing the castle under cover of night, wearing white to blend into the snow. This escape helped her preserve her cause, but the continued struggle between the two factions meant that the war would drag on for many more years. 3. The death of King Stephen's son, Eustace 1153. Another turning point in the conflict came when Eustace, Stephen's son and heir, died suddenly in 1153. This loss weakened Stephen's position, leaving him without a strong successor and reducing his support among his allies. With no clear heir, Stephen agreed to a peace settlement known as the Treaty of Wallingford, in which it was agreed that Stephen would remain king for the rest of his life, but Matilda's son, Henry Plantagenet, would succeed him. In 1153, the signing of the Treaty of Wallingford effectively ended the anarchy. Stephen, now an aging and weakened king, accepted Henry Plantagenet, Matilda's son, as his heir. When Stephen died in 1154, Henry ascended to the throne as Henry II, marking the beginning of the Plantagenet dynasty. Henry II's accession brought stability after nearly 2 decades of conflict. The agreement between Stephen and Henry ensured that Henry would become king, but it also brought an end to the violent civil war that had torn England apart. The anarchy, though formally over, left a legacy of destruction and division that would shape the reigns of future monarchs. The anarchy was one of the most destructive civil wars in English history, and its legacy was far-reaching. It demonstrated the fragility of monarchy, especially in a time when royal succession was not always guaranteed. The conflict led to widespread devastation across England, with cities, towns, and castles suffering from prolonged sieges, destruction, and shifting allegiances. Moreover, the anarchy laid the groundwork for the rise of the Plantagenet dynasty. The strength of Henry II as a ruler and the eventual stability he brought to England helped restore some measure of order. However, the memories of the Civil War would persist in the form of local power struggles, the consolidation of royal authority, and the growing power of the English monarchy over the nobility. The Norman Civil Wars, or the Anarchy, were a brutal and formative chapter in England's medieval history. From political intrigue to full-scale battles, this was a period that tested the limits of royal power and revealed the fragility of dynastic claims. The conflict reshaped the course of English history, leading directly to the establishment of the Plantagenet dynasty. If you found this video engaging, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts on the anarchy. What do you think the war teaches us about the nature of power and succession?